Have you ever wondered why saving money feels like trying to hold water in your bare hands? You know you should be putting money aside for the future. You have probably read all the advice about emergency funds and retirement planning. But somehow, your bank account balance keeps hovering around the same disappointing number month after month. As we move through the year 2026, the pressure to be financially secure has never been higher. Yet, according to the latest data from the Federal Reserve, the median retirement savings for a typical household is only $87,000. For most people, that is not even enough to cover 2 years of basic living expenses. If you feel like you are falling behind, you are certainly not alone. But here is something that might shock you and change the way you look at your wallet forever. The reason you struggle to save money is not because you lack willpower. It is not because you are financially irresponsible or bad with numbers. The real culprit is something far more fundamental and completely outside your conscious control. Your brain is literally wired to work against your long-term savings goals. In this deep dive, we are going to peel back the layers of human evolution to discover why smart people make terrible financial decisions. We will explore why your mind treats your future self like a complete stranger. And most importantly, we will look at how you can bridge that gap to finally build the wealth you deserve. Let us start with a simple truth that most financial experts refuse to acknowledge. Your brain is a survival machine that evolved over millions of years to keep you alive in dangerous environments. Back when our ancestors were dodging predators and competing for limited resources, the ability to delay gratification was not a survival skill. In fact, it was a dangerous risk. If you found a source of food, you ate it immediately, because there was no guarantee it would be there tomorrow. If you had the chance to acquire something valuable, you grabbed it right away, because waiting might mean losing that opportunity forever. Now, fast forward to today in 2026. We are still carrying around those same ancient brains, but we are trying to use them to navigate a world of credit cards, digital currency, and 30-year retirement plans. It is like trying to run modern software on a computer from the Stone Age. The system is simply not designed for what we are asking it to do. This brings us to the first psychological force working against your goals, and it is called present bias. Present bias is your brain's tendency to heavily favor immediate rewards over future ones, even when the future reward is significantly larger. Think about it this way. If someone offered you $20 right now, or $25 in 2 weeks, which would you choose? Most people instinctively want the $20 today, even though waiting would net them a 25% return in just 14 days. That is present bias in action. And it is absolutely devastating to your ability to build wealth. Neuroscientists have actually studied what happens in your brain during these moments. When you see something you want to buy right now, the reward centers in your brain light up like a neon sign. There is intense activity in the area responsible for processing immediate pleasure and satisfaction. But when you think about saving that same money for a goal 10 or 20 years away, a completely different part of your brain has to get involved. The prefrontal cortex, which handles logic and self-control, has to work overtime to override those immediate impulses. The problem is that the emotional immediate reward system is much more powerful than the logical planning system. It is like having a jet engine attached to bicycle brakes. The part of your brain that wants instant gratification is revving at full throttle, while the part trying to make rational decisions is barely able to keep up. This explains why putting $500 into a retirement account can feel like a painful loss, while spending that same $500 on a new gadget feels like pure joy. The retirement contribution is abstract, distant, and uncertain, but the gadget gives you instant ownership and 100% certain payoff right now. But there is an even deeper reason why saving for retirement feels so difficult. Groundbreaking research using brain scans has shown that when you think about your future self, your brain reacts as if you are thinking about a total stranger. In studies where people were shown pictures of themselves aged by 20 years, their neural pathways did not recognize that person as being them. As far as your brain is concerned, when you save money for retirement, you are giving your hard-earned cash to some random old person you have never met. No wonder it feels so unrewarding. To fix this, we have to find ways to make our future selves feel real and vivid today. But present bias is just the beginning of our psychological hurdles. There is another phenomenon that makes the struggle even harder, and it is called loss aversion. Loss aversion means that the pain you feel from losing money is roughly twice as strong as the pleasure you get from gaining the same amount. This creates a fascinating and dangerous psychological trap. When you think about putting money into a savings account, your brain does not always process it as building wealth. Instead, it often processes it as losing money that you could be spending right now. This is why so many people are terrified of the stock market. They might hear that the S&P 500 has historically returned an average of 10% per year. But that logical fact cannot compete with the emotional pain of seeing their balance drop during a market dip. Because of loss aversion, people will go to extraordinary lengths to avoid a small loss, even if it means missing out on a massive gain. This is why millions of people keep their money in low-interest checking accounts where inflation is guaranteed to eat away at their purchasing power. In 2026, with the cost of living continuing to rise, holding on to cash is actually a guaranteed loss of value. Yet because that loss happens slowly and silently, it does not trigger the same alarm bells in our brain as a sudden market drop does. Your brain is essentially tricking you into believing that avoiding the market is the safe choice, when in reality, it might be the riskiest move you can make for your long-term survival. Now let us talk about how your brain categorizes money, a concept known as mental accounting. Logically, every dollar has the same value, but psychologically, we treat money differently based on where it came from or what we intend to do with it. For example, most people are much more likely to spend a $500 tax refund on a luxury item than they are to spend $500 from their hard-earned weekly paycheck, even though it is the exact same amount of money. The refund gets put into a mental bucket labeled free money, while the paycheck goes into the bills and survival bucket. This mental sorting can completely derail your savings efforts. When you get a bonus or a windfall, your brain tells you it is okay to splurge, because that money was not part of the original plan. But the most successful investors understand that money is fungible. A dollar is a dollar, regardless of its source. By breaking down these mental buckets, you can start to treat every bit of income as a tool for building your future. As if internal sabotage was not enough, your brain also has a hyperactive system for social comparison. We are social creatures, and for our ancestors, social status was a matter of life and death. If you were at the bottom of the tribe's hierarchy, you had less access to food and protection. So your brain developed a system to constantly scan your environment and compare your situation to those around you. In the modern world of 2026, this system is being triggered 24 hours a day by social media. When you see a neighbor with a brand new electric vehicle or a friend posting photos from an expensive vacation, Your ancient brain interprets that as a threat. It signals that you are falling behind, and it creates an almost irresistible urge to spend money to close that perceived gap. This is what people call keeping up with the Joneses. But it is not about vanity. It is about a deeply embedded survival mechanism. The problem is that you are comparing your internal bank account to someone else's external highlight reel. You do not see the debt they took on to buy that car, or the stress they feel living paycheck to paycheck. Studies show that the most common careers among actual millionaires are not movie stars or professional athletes. They are engineers, accountants, and teachers. People who often live in modest houses and drive used cars for a decade or more. They have won the financial game by ignoring the social comparison drive and focusing on their own internal numbers. Now that we understand why our brains are working against us, how do we fight back? The answer is not more willpower. Willpower is like a muscle that gets tired. By the end of a long workday, your willpower tank is empty, which is exactly when you are most likely to make impulsive purchases online. Instead of relying on willpower, you need to build systems that work with your psychology. The first and most powerful tool is automation. If you have to decide to save money every month, you will eventually fail, because your brain will find a reason to spend it. But if the money is moved automatically from your paycheck into an investment account before you ever see it, the decision is taken out of your hands. You adapt your lifestyle to whatever is left in your checking account. This bypasses present bias, because the money never feels like it was yours to spend in the first place. The second strategy is to humanize your future self. Spend time thinking about who you will be at age 70. What will your daily life look like? What will you care about? When you make that person feel real, your brain starts to treat saving as an act of kindness towards someone you love rather than a gift to a stranger. Third, you must understand the math of the second million. Most people quit because the first $100,000 takes so much effort and feels so slow. But wealth growth is not a straight line. It is a curve that bends upward. If you can reach $1 million and leave it invested in a balanced portfolio, it can double to $2 million in roughly 7 years without you adding another cent. The second million comes much faster than the first, because your money is finally doing more work than you are. Understanding this tipping point can give you the motivation to stay the course when things feel slow. Finally, remember that financial independence is not about being rich. It is about having the freedom to decide how you spend your time. It is about the peace of mind that comes from knowing you are not one emergency away from disaster. Your brain might be running Stone Age software, but you are the programmer. You can choose to override the ancient impulses of fear and greed with a system of discipline and automation. The median household might only have $87,000 saved, but you do not have to be the median. By understanding the psychological traps of present bias, loss aversion, and social comparison, you have already taken the first step toward a different future. Stop beating yourself up for the mistakes of the past. Your brain was just doing what it thought was necessary to survive. But today, survival means planning for a future that is much longer than our ancestors ever imagined. Start small, stay consistent, and trust the process of compounding. A version of you 10 years from now will thank you for the choices you make today. The path to wealth is not paved with complicated spreadsheets or lucky stock picks. It is built on a foundation of self-awareness and the courage to act against your own primitive instincts. You have the tools. You have the knowledge. Now, it is time to build the life you have always wanted. Thank you for listening, And here is to your financial freedom in 2026 and beyond.